Welcome to Magitudes. In this tutorial I would like to show you guys how to use Canva to create stunning YouTube thumbnails. Let's dive right into it. First of all, we need to create a new design. In the top right corner of the screen, click on Create a Design. And then choose Custom Dimensions. Now, as far as YouTube thumbnails go, the size that we are looking for here is 1280 to 720 pixels. So that's what we are going to input here. Once that is done, click on Create New Design. However, there's even an easier way to get started. Let me just quickly demonstrate that. On the home page, instead of clicking on Create the Design, you can also click on Templates in the top left corner of the screen. And then just simply type in YouTube thumbnails. Once that is done, you can already see lots of different templates for YouTube thumbnails, which we will get into later on, and you can also from here just create a blank YouTube thumbnail. So just click here on the plus symbol, and that is going to open up yet another project for us. I'm just going to close the other one. Okay, great. Now we have a blank YouTube thumbnail Canva project. Now I'm just going to verify if the size is correct. So I'll just click here on Resize, and you will see that just as we typed in manually before, we have the same size set here, which is the correct size for YouTube thumbnails. So we are good to go. Now, how to actually create a good looking and intriguing YouTube thumbnail. Canva actually offers us a lot of nice tools to achieve that. First of all, we can use Canva Photos. Even if you're just using Canva free, you will find a lot of pictures here that you can use for your YouTube thumbnails. If you are on Canva Pro, there will be even more pictures to choose from. Often when I create YouTube thumbnails, the first thing that I will do is I will search for a picture. Then we also have Canva Elements. Often when you go to YouTube, you will see people putting arrows in their thumbnails, or they maybe use some lines or rectangles to make things more interesting. And that is definitely a great way to get a higher click-through rate on your YouTube thumbnails. Once we have designed the basics of our thumbnail, I'm also gonna show you how to use these elements to get even more out of your YouTube thumbnail. Also, if you don't want to use a picture as the background of your YouTube thumbnail, you can go into backgrounds here and you can choose some simple backgrounds there, or some background patterns, landscapes, or some nice looking gradients, which can also look great for YouTube thumbnails. One feature that I almost always use when I create YouTube thumbnails with the help of Canva is the background remover. Let me demonstrate how to use this amazing feature. First of all, we are going to choose a photo here for that purpose. I'm just going to search for elegant woman. Okay, I will just take this picture here. Right click on the picture, set image as background to fill out your project screen here with that picture. Now with the help of the background remover, I can easily crop out that woman out of that picture, which is amazing to create YouTube thumbnails, because what you want to do usually is you want to have as much freedom as possible when creating those thumbnails. And being able to crop out people from the actual image will give you the most freedom possible. Now let me just demonstrate how to actually use the background remover. The first thing you want to do is actually detach the picture from the background. We have to do that because sometimes when you use the background remover, there will be problems if you don't do this step first. So it's safer to do that first, and then once that is done, head over to Effects here and click on Background Remover. This usually takes some time, especially in Google Chrome. You can try to use Firefox instead. Usually it works a bit better there. And sometimes you will have to do that 3 or 4 times because there will be an error or something. It's not very stable, unfortunately, but it's well worth the wait. As you can see now here, it worked perfectly for us here. And now I can freely move that picture all around our project, which is super amazing to create YouTube thumbnails. Now that this is done, I can choose another photo, for example. Let me just choose, I'm just going to input beauty, and let me see what we can find here. Okay, this one here looks pretty nice, so maybe I would like to have that one as a background for our lady with the shopping bags. To do that, simply drag and drop that inside of the project, and that's it. Already looks pretty nice. I can now simply reposition our lovely lady here by dragging and dropping it to the desired location. I can also rescale it here if I go to the top right corner of the image here and then you will see those double arrows. You can simply drag it and make it bigger that way. Just gonna reposition it again until I'm satisfied with the results, maybe something like that. That's already looking pretty great. So this is really how I always go about creating YouTube thumbnails. But now, obviously, in most of the cases, you will also have some text with it. So you want to have some text elements on your YouTube thumbnail. And for that purpose, I'm going to reposition our lady once again a little bit here on the left side so that I have enough space on the right side to add some text. I can also make our image here a bit smaller because there's nothing in there, so we don't use that. I can just drag that here to the border of the lady. Okay, now to add text elements onto our project, you can either just press T on the keyboard. That will add a text element in our project. I'm just gonna delete that for a second. Or you can go here to text on the left side and just simply drag and drop a heading. This will be a standard heading, or you can also browse through the different fonts here immediately. However, you can also just drag and drop a heading first and then change the font, obviously. So for our purposes, I will maybe just drag and drop the standard header here, drag it into our project, resize it, and just add a random headline. Maybe something like beauty. And now to add another text element, what you can do is simply click on that text element and then hold Alt or the Option key on your keyboard and then drag it down. Like this, you will be able to create a copy of your first text. This is very useful because in many cases you will want to have more than just one word on your thumbnail, and like that you can easily create another text element with the same attributes. So let me just reposition that a little bit, and maybe I'm gonna have something like beauty, shopping, whatever that's supposed to be. That's a little bit big, so I'll make this a bit smaller and I'll reposition it a little bit. Okay, you could just have something like that, for example. But now, of course, you can change that to your liking, make it bigger or smaller. From here you can change the text color. Maybe I would like to have that. No, in white is not good, obviously. It's gonna be too dark. Gray also doesn't match very well, but maybe something like that. You can do that for all these elements, obviously. And now we already have our first YouTube thumbnail. If you would like to create different versions of your YouTube thumbnail just to see which one you like best, you can simply copy that design here by clicking on those two sheets or 2 pages. And another similar copy will be created for you. So here maybe you can do something else or add some elements, or maybe take that down a little bit, make beauty here bigger. The important thing with YouTube thumbnails is really that the fonts are very well visible. So you should always go with easy fonts and with a big font size. That's very important, because a lot of people, they choose horrible fonts for YouTube thumbnails that are barely visible. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Another cool thing that you should do when you create YouTube thumbnails in Canva is you can use this zoom function here, and you should have a look at your thumbnail when they are much smaller, maybe something like that here, 25%. And like that you can actually verify how good can people still see the font when it's smaller, because when you're browsing YouTube, or when somebody else is browsing YouTube and they will see your YouTube thumbnails, they will usually see your thumbnail in a very small size. So you absolutely have to make sure that your thumbnail is still clearly visible and people can actually read what's written on it. So the second version here would obviously be much better than the first one, because the font in the first one already looks a bit small when the picture is actually minimized to 25%. Now let me show you a couple of YouTube thumbnails that I already created for you guys inside of Canva, to give you an idea on what kind of YouTube thumbnails you could possibly create inside of Canva. Okay, here are a couple of YouTube thumbnails that I created for you guys to get a good idea about this. The first thumbnail that we got here is the classic before and after thumbnail that I'm sure you have seen dozens of times on YouTube already. To do this kind of thumbnail, it's very easy. We'll just have the same font here twice. You can use the technique that I showed you before to actually copy that text element and make two. And for those two elements here, what I did, I simply went to photos. I searched photos with two people. For that guy here, I searched something like shocked guy, and here maybe happy guy. And I've used the background remover for those two images to just get the person, and then I just added that here onto a background that I found here in our background panel. Yeah, this one here. Then the last thing I did to create this thumbnail is I just added this line here in the middle, and you can find lines like that here in Elements. To find something like that, just click on line, and then simply drag and drop a line inside of your project, and with the help of that symbol here you can easily change that vertical line into a horizontal line. Okay, I'm just going back here. That's it. The second YouTube thumbnail that I created here is basically just a template. As you have seen before, there are dozens of YouTube templates. To access those templates, all you need to do is click here on templates in the top left corner of the screen, and then search for YouTube thumbnail. And you will see that you will find hundreds of different YouTube thumbnails, and that's just how I found that one here. So I will just remove that here for a second. Just trying to remove all the elements. And now I'm gonna browse through all those YouTube thumbnails on the left side. And once you've found one that you actually like, simply drag and drop that inside of your project, and bam, you already have a new YouTube thumbnail. And then obviously, as always in Canva, you can just simply adjust each of these elements. So maybe I would like to reposition that woman a little bit, and you can also easily change the text. to whatever you would like. You can resize those elements. Maybe you don't like that element here, just click on it, click on delete to remove it. Maybe you want to reposition that element a little bit up. And there you go. And that's it. It's really, really simple. I can do that with all these templates here. You can just drag and drop another one. You can adjust all those elements very quickly, resize some elements, change the text colors, maybe make that one a bit bigger. It's just so easy to use. Let me show you a couple more YouTube thumbnails that I did in Canva. I'm often doing videos about the software called Discord. So here's my standard Discord template. As I told you guys before, you have to make sure that you're using fonts that are very well visible. So I really like to use a font called League Spartan. Now when I make this smaller here to 25%, for example, you will see that this font still looks super clear even on 25%. So if I even go smaller on 10% here, you can still read that here without any problem. But it's almost impossible to read here that captivating coast or that subheading here. Nobody can read that at a very small size. So it's always a good idea to make fonts very big and use easy fonts. Let me just show you a couple more here. So that's a little Halloween thumbnail that I did just before. It's maybe a bit scary, but I just wanted to show you how you can create these kind of YouTube thumbnails that you always see on YouTube. You often see like faces like that with weird facial expressions to create more attention for your thumbnail. So the way I did that thumbnail is just as the ones before, just remove the background from photos that you can already find in the library, resize it a little bit, and like that you get a little scary Halloween thumbnail. Let me show you even more examples here. Okay, this one here is a great example. I call this the arrow template. As you've probably noticed on YouTube these days, you will often see a thumbnail that will also include an arrow. Because this is good to foster attention, people will wonder like, oh, what's going on here with that arrow? What's it pointing to? And it's just really an instrument to make people curious about things. So to add these kind of elements to your YouTube thumbnail here in Canva, it's very easy. Just go to Elements and then type something like arrow, and you will find lots of different arrow elements that you can simply drag and drop inside of your project. Then you can also change the color here. For an arrow, usually want to have a red one, I guess. Reposition them to your liking, and that's it. Sometimes you also see circles on YouTube thumbnails. To do that, you can just type in circle here, drag and drop a circle, and you're good to go. If you're into sports, then we have a sport template here. That's actually a template I found by simply going to templates here, looking for YouTube thumbnails. You can also type in YouTube thumbnails sport, for example, and then you will just find YouTube. Thumbnails for sport-related topics. And as you can see, I just dragged and dropped that template here. This is a great font, for example, for YouTube thumbnails as well, because if you're gonna scale that down to 10%, you will see that this is still crystal clear and you can still read it even at a very small size. Here's yet another type of thumbnail that you will often come across on YouTube. Now let me show you yet another fascinating YouTube thumbnail, which I call the reaction template. On this template you can see a woman which has a shocked face or very surprised face, and then next to that you have an embedded image to actually show why this person has this specific emotion or expression. To demonstrate how to do that, I will create something similar for you guys. So the first step is I'm gonna click here on duplicate page, and then I'm just going to delete these things. And now we are going to photos here, and we will search for something maybe like shocked guy. And let me see what we can find here. Okay, maybe we can just take that guy here. And the first step now is, as always, we will remove the background. Just go to effects and then background remover to remove the background. Okay, great, we have our surprised or shocked guy in front of green grass. So now we want to embed another picture just as here. For that purpose, Canva is actually providing us with something called frames. To access these frames, go to Elements. And in Elements, you will see that when you scroll down a bit, that at a certain point you can find frames. I'm going to see all here, and then I can just choose the kind of frame I'm looking for. Then simply drag and drop that frame inside of your project. Resize it to your liking. And now the cool thing of frames is actually that they are serving as some kind of placeholders. You have now the option to simply drag and drop something inside of that placeholder. So you can basically drag and drop any picture inside of that placeholder, and that will immediately create that effect that we are looking for. Considered we are choosing a nice image that goes well with the situation, of course. So I'm just gonna have a look here. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's fascinated that someone is really good in dribbling with the ball, so I could just choose that one here, for example, and drag and drop that inside of our picture. Also, when you double click that, you can still actually reposition it a bit to get better results. Then just simply click on Done. As you can see now, it already becomes more apparent why this guy is so shocked or surprised. To make this even a little bit more dramatic, we probably want to add our arrow from before. So I'll just go to Elements here, type arrow, and I'll just have a look for a good arrow. Maybe this one here, but we can use the flip function here to flip it horizontally or vertically. I will just flip it vertically for our purpose, so I can use that arrow like that. I can change the angle here a little bit, make it a bit smaller, and then also change the color to red, for example. So I guess you really get the idea. Like this you can make some really intriguing YouTube thumbnails. Maybe the grass here in the background is a little bit too sharp because we want to give this ginger guy as much exposure as possible. So a good way to do that is to actually blur the background a little bit, because that will create this amazing effect that will draw attention to the person and to that second picture rather than to the background. To do that, simply select the background and then go to Adjust here. Now with the blur, with this blur fader here, we can blur the background a bit. And just watch what that does. I blurred this for 10 here, and you can see now that our guy is much more in the center of attention. Let me just go back to 0 for a second, and you can see now the background is still crystal clear. But if we just blur this a little bit for maybe like 5 or 10, that will really make our guy stick out here. Another thing you can do is you can just click on that guy now, and we will once again go into adjust, and then you can de-blur that guy, which is also known as sharpen in other tools such as Illustrator, for example. You can sharpen that by going here on the other side within the blur fader, and you will see that our guy sticks out even more like that. If I will go back to 0, it's kind of blurry, but if I will use that fader to go on the left here, it will become less and less blurry and will stick out even more. Now, last but not least, when creating YouTube thumbnails, you will see a lot of people using some fancy text boxes to actually make the text stick out more in these thumbnails. Of course, you can also do that in Canva. Once again, I will duplicate the page here and then just clear everything on it to get a blank project here. Now, to create those text boxes, it's pretty simple. First of all, press on T to get some text inside of your project page. Now I'm just gonna double click that. I'm gonna change the font here by clicking on that down arrow here on top of the screen. At the beginning of this tutorial, I mentioned that I like the font Leak Spartan, so I'm gonna search for that font, click on it, and that will give us this amazing font. Now I'm going to duplicate that text by simply pressing down Alt or Option key on the keyboard and then drag and drop the text as many times as I like to create similar elements. Now I'm going to change the text maybe to soccer highlights 2020, whatever. I'm gonna reposition those elements a bit. And now to actually get those text boxes that you can see here in my Discord Platinum review, all you need to do is go to Elements, search for Rectangle, drag this first rectangle here inside of the project, and you can simply resize it by using this line here or those double arrows in the corner. You can resize that to your liking and you can just put that behind your text. To copy those elements, as before, press down Alt or Option key on your keyboard, drag and drop it to create several of these elements. Change the size. Okay, here that doesn't work. I'll take that down a bit. Now you can obviously also change the color of those text boxes. Make sure the text box is selected. I will choose just a yellow here. I think that goes pretty well with our text. Now I will choose a background here from the background panel, maybe just a black background. That looks pretty good. We will add a little soccer player to our thumbnail, maybe that guy. The cool thing is in Canva you even have some cropped out people already where you don't even need to remove the background. As you can see with this guy here, there's no background that goes with it, so I can simply drag and drop this guy and it's gonna be perfect without even having to remove the background. That's super cool. In that fashion you can easily create nice looking text boxes as I did here in the Discord Me Platinum review. If you also want to have a border around your text box, just go to Elements again, and then yeah, it's also under it's also under Rectangle, but instead of the first one, just choose this second element here, and then you can resize that element and make it so that it will fit your text box. Then copy those rectangles as we did before with our text. Resize. Copy again. Resize. Just drag that a little bit down here. There you go. There you go. We've got another good looking YouTube thumbnail that will also look good enough when scaled down to 10%. And it's even, you can even still read the thumbnail. So a good YouTube thumbnail is always featuring huge fonts. Just keep that in mind. You need a big font that will stick out. People can actually read what your video is all about. To finish things off, I would just like to show you yet another couple of YouTube thumbnails that I just did like half an hour ago. Please have a look at them, and if you have some questions about how to actually create these, simply drop a comment in this video and I will be most happy to answer your questions. So let me see what we've got here. Okay, we got a basketball player here, and I just removed the background for the player. I added a background of a NBA stadium, and there I used a blur effect so that our player here stands out a bit more. Also, I created a glow effect by actually duplicating that player, and then I used an effect here under effects, the so-called duotone effect. And then I put that second player behind that player here and changed the size a little bit, and then you can go into adjust, and there with blur, brightness, contrast and saturation you can create this kind of glow effect. If that is something that you are interested in, please let me know, and then I'm gonna do a separate tutorial just about this amazing kind of glow effect. Okay, for our food bloggers here we have, or our food vloggers, we have an easy curry recipe with an amazing font here. Let me just check the name of that font. It's League Gothic. Yet another outstanding font you can use here in Canva that looks really nice and sharp for a YouTube thumbnail. Then here we've got something more aesthetically pleasing, as I would say. And at the end here of my little project I've got some pretty fingernails. Those fingernails here, if you search YouTube for beauty and nails and stuff, the thumbnail divided in different sections. That's also very easy to do with Canva. Let me just remove that for a second here. But you can use some grids or some frames as I've showed you before already to achieve that. I will just go to elements here and I'm gonna look for frames. And here I just simply use that frame here. I resize that to our YouTube thumbnail size. And once that is done, if you're searching for fingernails, I can just simply drag and drop these pictures in there. Takes you 10 seconds and you've got yet another good looking thumbnail. So that's it guys, how to create YouTube thumbnails in 2021 with Canva. I really wanted to give you guys a hands-on tutorial on how to do that. I use Canva every single day to create YouTube thumbnails, to create featured images for my blogs, and I absolutely love it. You can do things in Canva extremely fast. If you use Illustrator or Photoshop to do stuff like that, you need half a year of training to do the simplest things. So if you're not that kind of graphic nerd that has been doing this for years and years, why not doing it in 5 minutes in Canva, and you can still get good results as you have seen in this little tutorial. I know this tutorial maybe was a little bit chaotic, but I really wanted to show you exactly how I do things, because in many tutorials you will just get a little glimpse into the work, but I really wanted to show you from scratch how you actually do these thumbnails. This is exactly how I do it, and I get good results like that. And for most thumbnails I don't use more than maybe 2 or 3 minutes. It will take some practice for you to find all these elements and mix everything together, but once that's done and you've learned the basic shortcuts for Canva, you will be able to do that as well and quickly get good results. If you did indeed enjoy this video, I would be most grateful if you could subscribe to my channel, and in that case, please don't forget to hit the notification bell. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye!